What's going on, Legionnaires, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor and hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, and make sure you're not missing any of the awesome content we have coming out. Now for this video, we're going to be diving into some of the Eternals, issue number 4. Now if you haven't been keeping up with the Eternals, go ahead and check out the link in my description, as well as the top of this video. It's going to get you completely caught up on all the issues that have come out of the Eternal line thus far. Now, in the last couple of issues, we've seen the Resurrection Machine go offline. Not only that, but Zurus, the Prime Eternal, was murdered by Thanos. And so Cersei, Sprite, Phastos, Kingo, and Thena conspire to root out the traitor who helped Thanos. All while Icarus continues his oath to protect this seemingly entirely normal human boy by the name of Toby Robson. Now, this is written by Kieran Gillen, artist is Astad Ribic, color artist is Matthew Wilson, and letterer and designer is VC's Clayton Cowles. And with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright guys, so this issue picks us up at the reality loom at the isolation. Now Phastos, he's toiling with the machine, wrestling with it to try to get it to not essentially fall apart. You know, for all of his technical genius, it's just not working. And above, the surface weather is chaos, and it's not gone unnoticed. The Eternals are not Earth's only protectors after all. They're just the ones with the most experience. And we see Phastos kind of banging away, but him hitting with this hammer, it's not doing damage, it's not some barbaric aspect. Every time he hits this hammer, it's a precision celestial tool. Every single strike uploads a combination of instructions. If you have the right hammer, all tasks are nails. And while he's doing this, him and Cersei have a conversation about how she's arranged a dinner with Tony Stark. More or less to try to kind of fill them in, let them know what's going on, but not give them all the information. More or less making them feel important. They've learned a little something, but at the end of the day, they're doing it more as a professional courtesy. What they're not going to tell them is about Thanos, because Thanos is their problem. It's always been their problem. And the Avengers, they couldn't enter the machine to hunt him down anyway. She's just gonna dazzle them with some science, kind of stroke their egos a little bit. You know, Eternals begging for help always leaves the mortals a little bit in a tizzy. Now, picking up in the Arctic Circle, we see Druig. And Druig is meeting Thena and Kingo. Meeting him because they're here to investigate what happened here. Because Polera just witnessed the biggest slaughter that has ever happened. Now, for the time being, they've shut down the network access directly to Polera. That way, when Thanos decides he wants to come back through, he can't. And they're here to do an investigation. Kind of playing a bad cop, good cop kind of situation. They're here to find out exactly what happened and if Druig is in fact working with Thanos or not. Now, this is when we're taken to New York. And we see this kid Toby, and we also see Sprite, because Sprite has been brought into the fold by Icarus. Now Icarus is kind of watching from the skies, making sure nothing comes to kill this kid, and Sprite's job is to do it on the ground. Now Toby learns real quick that this Eternal is vastly different than Icarus. A lot more fun, a lot more joking, a lot more shenanigans. But at the end of the day, Sprite is here to keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on the ground while Icarus watches the skies. And in Polaris, they're going over the chain of events. Now, right now, Druig is looking like a prime suspect for being the one that's working with Thanos. You know, Zurus was killed, the Prime Eternal, and now everybody in Polaris, which makes him the leader in Polaris. He is next in line. But he lets them know, you know, this wasn't necessarily to my benefit. You know, while I may be a mind controller to some degree, I can't control so many minds at one time. It's not like playing with humans. You know, they're more difficult instruments to try to control. And he's really trying to treat this lightly because he didn't do anything wrong. That's his defense. I've done nothing wrong, so I have nothing to hide from you guys. But at the same time, Thena's not really buying it. Just because he's being very nonchalant doesn't make her feel like he is innocent in this. You know, if anything, it's making her feel like he's just an emotionless predator. Now, he admits, you know, he doesn't feel anything for these people. He's not necessarily sad that they all died and that he's now going to be the new ruler of Polera. And while obviously he's a suspect, sometimes the most obvious of suspects isn't necessarily the guilty party. And this is when he turns to Kingo and asks him, like, you know this better than anybody else. And this is when we're taken back to the time when Genghis Khan was running the streets. Now, this is a little bit after his time, and his son is now currently head Mongol in charge, if you will. And Kingo is going through a town where he was literally just seeing skulls and bodies stacked on top of one another. The year being 1241, the Mongol horde of Batu is invading Europe. Now, seeing this massacre, he's livid. He is mad. He wants to go find out who's responsible. And so he goes and finds the Mongol camp. And going to the camp, he sees Druig. Druig sitting around with the Mongols, drinking, eating, laughing, having a grand old time. And he tells Druig, like, we need to talk. We need to talk right now. And he pulls him off to the side. And he's just like, what the hell is going on here? And for Druig, he's just learning exactly who they are. You know, to him, this isn't savagery. This is clean and civilized. It's almost refreshing. He's learning so much from the humans in this regards. Now, Kingo, he really believes that Druig is responsible for all of this. But Druig lets him know this has nothing to do with me. This is the people's will. This is what they choose to do. You know, it's not him that drives them, it's their divine destiny. They believe all under the sky should belong to them. And he wonders, and he's very curious on what they'll do next once this task has been completed. You know, the great thing about being an Eternal is getting to learn by experience. And the best experience is to learn by other people's. But he tells him, you know, if you really truly want to end all of this right now, you can go to the head chiefman. You can go to the head of this army and you can cut it off. You can end it tonight if you really wanted to, if you want to end this bloodshed. And so this is when we see Kingo sneak into the room of Genghis Khan's son. And he thinks, in this moment, I could end it. He pulls his knife, he draws it out, and he goes to stab him, but he stops himself. He couldn't, or he chose not to. You know, he's vowed to protect the humans, but if he protected the humans from themselves, it was something else. If he did that, he might as well crown himself king. The humans have to decide what happens next. And now come the next morning, the camp was completely gone, and they had headed east away from Europe. And Kingo couldn't understand exactly what happened here. But this is when Druig tells him the Khan of Khans is dead. Back east, he had a stroke by the sounds of it, and everybody is needing to return to select the new ruler. And so today, Europe has been saved, all by a stroke of luck. And it begs the question, you know, what would have happened if Kingo had murdered him in his sleep? Would they have invaded Europe? Would they have ignored the call to return? Would they have vowed vengeance in that moment and in their anger laid waste to all of Europe? The world may never know. And for Kingo, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that history changed paths on a single heartbeat. But that's the way of the world. That happens every single day. And so Kingo kind of agrees with Druig. You know, maybe they do have it wrong. Maybe he isn't the one that is manipulating all of it. Maybe he isn't the puppet master. But Thena, she still isn't convinced yet. No, she doesn't believe it. Everybody was murdered, to include the scientists. So all of this is so suspicious to her. But all of that doubt is about to get washed away. Because behind them, coming through a portal, we see Thanos. And Thanos wastes no time grabbing Druig by the head and smashing him into the ground. And this is where we see Kingo and Thena jump into the action and they start taking on Thanos. Now, it doesn't show us a lot of this battle because of how fast it happens. You know, Thena has skill beyond the capacity of mortal eyes to follow. And Kingo, he fights like an arrow storm. But that's really not what to focus on in this fight. What to focus on in this fight is Druig. Because Druig's not a fighter. He's a snake. And snakes are calculators. He could escape, because he has no love for anyone that's here, but he chooses to fight. And this is when Druig puts Thanos into kind of a prison in the mind. But it doesn't take long for Thanos to figure out that this is all a trap, that it's all a trick. And as he's searching through the nothingness, he finds Druig. He grabs him by the throat and lifts him up. And before he gets the opportunity to squish his head, Thena drives a sword through the chest of Thanos. And as soon as he is wounded, he is opening up a portal and he's making his escape before Kingo could drop his sword and behead Thanos. And this is when they ask the machine, like, where did he go? But the machine, it doesn't know. It just knows that he looped inside the machine in a non-existent quantum space. More or less, he's Shroudinger's serial killer. At least that's what the machine is telling us here. Now the issue is he shouldn't have been able to access the network at all. The network has been completely locked down, so somehow he's manipulating it. But they all know who's gonna be the issue. They know who is helping Thanos out, or who could be, and that who is Gilgamesh and the Forgotten. And this is where Athena tells Kingo to go grab Icarus, because if they're going after them, they're gonna need some help. And this is when these two decide it's time for them to leave Polaris, leaving Druig behind. And as they take off, we see a portal open up behind Druig. And out of that portal comes Thanos. Now, while Druig put him in this little state, he sent him a psychic signal, kind of implanted it in his brain. And Druig offers him a drink and tells him, you know, like, I understand that you allied yourself with one of the Eternals. One of them have been assisting you, and honestly, I'm super offended. I'm super offended that I wasn't your first phone call. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Personally, I am absolutely loving this Eternal line. It has been so much fun, and it's refreshing. It's new. It's away from the Avengers and the X-Men and Wakanda, and we're on a whole new level of superheroing. You know, these guys are the Eternals. They are the first protectors of Earth. And, you know, this is all in preparation for the Eternals movie that's going to be coming out, which, honestly, I'm so freaking excited for. I don't know if they're going to be following along this storyline per se. I don't know how they're going to be introduced into the MCU as a whole. But I have to say, I am very excited, and I cannot wait to see Icarus on the big screen. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have not yet, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel, like this video, hit that notification bell, and until the next breakdown.